So most of you know my husband Jim, including me.
I hope so.
And those that don't, my husband Jim. And he has this special life journey he just started out on that he's going to talk about.
Wow.
Go ahead, take it.
That's intriguing. Oh, yeah. This will be interesting. Do I need the microphone?
No.
No. Okay. Am I loud enough?
It just has to be good for Bill.
Yeah.
Bill! Must be good. Okay. I'm Jim, and I have a life journey like everybody else does here. And I'm going to start off by asking Gordon Stanley something. Gordon.
Yes. Bill.
Where were you born?
I was born in Newark, New Jersey.
Okay. And where was your father born?
My father was born in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Do you know where your grandfather was born?
On my father's side,
Yes, paternal side.
I know my grandmother was born in Sweden. My grandfather was born in Maine.
Okay. So we've gone back 3 generations already. Now I tie it to an educational story. Back when I was teaching in high school, I had an interaction with our principal. He was a biology teacher, and his name was Gene Sudol, and he was telling me about one of the most embarrassing times as a teacher for him. And he was teaching Mendelian genetics, big T, little t, dominant and regressive traits. And he started talking about blue-eyed people. If a male and a female, both blue-eyed, have offspring, blue-eyed offspring. Now we now know that there's a 3% genetic drift. This is where green eyes comes from. But blue eyes plus blue eyes equals blue eyes. Girl raises her hand. You're wrong. Both of my parents have blue eyes and I have brown eyes. They never told her that she was adopted. She went home that night, they had a nice conversation, and all of a sudden she came back, Mr. Sudol, you were right. And he says, that was the most awkward time I ever had as being a teacher. Because science doesn't lie. That's the way it is, and genetics doesn't lie. All right. I'm 55 years old, but I was born in 1963, and I'm the product of a closed adoption. State of New York, you're not allowed to find out anything about your birth parents at all, still today, even for health reasons, whatever. Completely closed. I was adopted by a loving family. We lived in North Haledon, my mom and dad. My dad was an engineer, my mom was a nurse. Grew up the middle-class lifestyle, went to Manchester Regional High School, graduated in 1981, and eventually went to college, Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And, you know, it was a good life. It still is a good life. But there was always a question, because they told me when I was young, I was adopted. Well, that's because you're special. Don't worry about that. It's like, well, what's going on? Why was I adopted? Who were my parents? Because if you're adopted, those questions are there. No matter what anyone says, they're present. In other people, it might manifest itself in different ways, but for me, I always question. My vocation is a history teacher. I love history. And what frustrated me about this was my personal history hit a roadblock. I could not do what Gordon Stanley just did. It was alien. It was shut off. So back in the 80s, I asked my mom, I said, can you write the agency, see if they could come up with something? You get the standard form letter from Catholic Charities saying, no, it's a closed adoption, you can't do it. Okay. So life goes on, I get married to Cindy, we have Jimmy, and then Jimmy comes home with a project. He says, we have to do a family trip. Okay. So I load up myheritage.com. They were doing a special. You can start a family tree for free and keep it for 30 days. So now I start doing the family tree. And the family tree starts to grow, starts to grow, starts to grow. But being a historian, I know it's not a family tree for me. It's a social tree. It's not a genetic tree. So, and I told my son this, and he says, don't worry, Dad. So, one night last year, I was talking to a friend of mine on my deck, and his name is Don, and he's a private investigator in the city of New York. And I asked him, Don, is there any way you could find out about this? It was a closed adoption, 1963. He says, the only way you're going to find out, because your paperwork is still analog, it's still on paper, it's in a box in some warehouse in the clerk's office, and the only way you're going to find out is if you bribe somebody. I said, I don't want to go there. So I said, okay, yeah. He said, but you can do this as a shot in the dark. I said, what? He said, do one of those genetic tests. He said, okay. So now that was last August. And I was thinking, and I'm thinking, and finally, I'm coming up on my 55th birthday, and I said, you know what? I got to do something here. Got to quench that curiosity. So I ordered the kit from ancestry.com. It sat for 2 weeks. It was a very intimidating decision because I knew Pandora's box was going to be opened once I did that. What's going to happen? So you sit there. The hardest part about the test is just spitting into this vial for 15 minutes. It's just crazy. So at the end of it, you're just so parched, you put it away and zoom, send it out. And it's like, okay, give me a water. And down the water. Wow. I didn't do that. And so anyway, it takes around 8 weeks. Cindy and I, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, were out in Vegas. And Ancestry gives you these email updates constantly. We received your package. We are now pulling the specimen out. We are now testing the specimen. It has to bake. It has to whatever. So finally, the day before we come home, your results are almost done. Okay, so we take the red-eye flight. I finally get to bed at 8 in the morning on Sunday. And I go to bed thinking I was Italian. I wake up, and there are my results. And before we looked at them, Cindy, my son, our son James, and myself sat at the table and we said, okay, what top 5 ethnicities do you think I am? We completely got it wrong. Wow. I'm not Italian. 0. Mostly Welsh. Mostly British, Irish, German, Dutch. And within 2 hours of looking at this and opening up my past, I get an email from this woman I never knew. She says, why don't you check out my genealogy tree and find out where you perch? And I'm looking at it. And I find her. Her name is Terry Hardin. And I see Terry Hardin. And now I know how to do a genealogy tree because I do it with the royals all the time when I'm dealing with British history. And I'm looking at this and I say, okay, here's Terry. Here's her mom. Terry's an only child. Her mom is an only child. But the hit says, close family, first cousin. That's how they break it down. Okay. And I look at it, and I'm saying, So now I start clicking on her mom. She had a profile. And there was a photograph of this woman when she was 23 years old. And I looked at it, and I started to cry. Because I saw it in the face. It was my mom. And I typed back to her, I emailed her, and I said, I'm your brother. I found a half-sister. And because of that genetic testing, Cindy and I are going out to Palm Springs in August to visit my sister. And my grandmother is still alive at 97. So hopefully we're going to visit Grandma. She passed away in 2011 at the age of 69. So, yeah, COPD, lung complications, she was a heavy smoker. So, and that's what happened. So now, that side of the story is complete. And my sister has over 4,000 people in her genealogy tree. She's been doing it for 10 years. And on the Williams side, because my mother's name was Williams, that's the Welsh, she's able to track it back to England to 1544. And the Dutch aspect, who's in here? Who's Dutch in here? Okay, did you ever hear of the Van Benscholds or the Bunscholds? Tunis Eliason van Benschol. You ever hear Kingston, New York? Okay. The 1600s. From the Van Benschoten, he started the Van Benschoten clan. And in 1907, a cousin who passed away a long time ago wrote the history of the Van Benschoten family. And it's this 800-page book. And I'm related to the guy who wrote this book about our common ancestor. And being a historian and a history teacher, it just blows my mind every time I start looking at these things. So, but the problem is we still have a roadblock. I only know the maternal side. Since then, I've gone to 23andMe and done the genetic testing. And the closest I could find on my paternal side are third cousins. I can't find second cousins, I can't find first cousins, I can't find siblings, can't find my dad. Still a mystery, unknown. I narrowed it down to around 16 possible surnames. Because you have to go back 4 generations, you look who you're related to, and then, okay, let's check out all of these surnames. But still, it's a lot more than what I knew. And when you go to ancestry.com,
And you just shake it there.
Just shake.
shake it.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Shake and bake.
Yeah. Okay. This is my sister. We both have a cleft chin. She's 5 years older than me. She also said I have a half brother. We don't know where he is. My birth mother had 3 children. So.
But it says first cousin.
Close family, first cousin. Okay? Then down here, I have a second cousin, Patty Austin, first cousin, second cousin. And it goes from extremely high, very high, high, good. All right? This means that when they say extremely high, they have a 95% confidence that this is correct. And obviously it starts to slip. You've got the further you go down. And
How many people have had this done? I mean, that would make a difference for them.
8 million people have already taken it.
Yeah,
Ancestry is the largest database on the planet. 23andMe is the second largest. They have around 4 million. The third one is MyHeritage. They have around 2 million. I'm doing MyHeritage sometime next week. So this is why I cover the 3 main databases on the planet. See if I get a hit. So it gives you a breakdown of your DNA story, and you can't run away from your DNA. Every few months they redo the algorithms for more precise. Okay? And growing up, I was always told I was Italian, and my mom, when she wrote Catholic Charities, they told her I was Italian. Completely wrong. So it turns out that I'm primarily Western European, and that my forebears migrated to these areas in the colonies. It turns out that through one of my branches, we were in Jamestown.
1607?
Actually, 1621. They came in after the first few years.
Wow.
But we have 3 successive generations in Jamestown. Tunis Elias of Van Benschoten, he was up in New York. It wasn't New York then. It was Nieuw Amsterdam. It was a Dutch colony. So I went from thinking I was, maybe 2nd, 3rd generation Italian after the 1870s migration wave. I was here before there was the United States. And it blew my mind. And here's something else that, let's see. Let me get one last thing. That's my genetic makeup. Southern Asian, Iranian.
It's not there today.
Yeah, right there. This says I have Southern European, but according to 23andMe, it says I have 0 Italian and 1% African from Senegal. Mostly from the British Isles, and from Holland, and from Western Germany. All from spitting in a vial. So since April, my life has been that's my life journey so far.